Hi, and welcome to part 3 of Reading Skills for Early Readers. In part 3, we're going to look at the essential reading skills that your child needs to be a reading rock star. Did you know that before your child reads their first book, nay, their first word, there are up to 13 skills that they need to develop? These are known as pre-reading skills. And if you're watching this and you have a much older child, please don't think that these skills don't apply to your child. Because if your child is struggling in different elements of reading, then going back and doing some of these skills and activities with them will actually help them to become stronger readers. I am going to just give a brief overview of each one of these skills, but you can read on the slides. It will give you some of the theoretical concept development that happens with each one of these skills. First very important skill is retelling stories. So your child needs to be able to come back to you after you've read a story and explain to you what happened in the story. It is very important that they can organize and describe the events of a story. Next, very importantly, is the sequencing skill. Here, your child needs to be able to understand the story in order to organize the information and to put it in some sort of an order. This is a very important reading skill, and it doesn't even need any words. Thirdly, a very important skill is prediction. In prediction, you're going to show your child a picture and ask them to predict what's going to happen next, or what do you think happened to give us this picture? What happened before the pig ran out of his house? This is encouraging children to think deeper, to think about meaning, to process the information that they're getting from the picture. Because one day we're going to ask them to process information that they're getting from a text. Another very important skill is matching. This may not seem like a reading skill, but in fact it is, and it also crosses over into the mathematics side. Here you're going to ask your child which one of these are the same, which one is different. What this is asking them to do is to look for similarities and differences. This, believe it or not, is going to help them one day when they have a B, a D, and a P, and they need to be able to tell the difference in those letters when they are doing spelling, reading, and blending. Wow. Who remember these Where's Wally or Where's Waldo books? Like, these are incredibly powerful as a pre-reading skill because here you're asking the child to focus on detail, looking for specific things. It is also, once again, organizing information, sorting information, and very importantly, developing their short-term memory. Short-term memory is a very important skill that children need to have strengthened when they are going to be learning to read. Now we're asking them to look at the pictures and to find small details. But just imagine, pretty soon, they're going to be given a page where all of these pictures actually turn into letters, and we're asking them to look for details in the story. Sound awareness. Now, sound awareness doesn't actually start with understanding a, b, k, d. No, in fact, where it starts is understanding and distinguishing sounds in your environment. So a child being able to hear an animal sound and know that is a lion, that is a cow. Children be able to hear a siren and know, well, that's a house alarm or that's a fire alarm. That's a fire engine coming. Children being able to recognize the sound of a bell. Is that an ice cream truck? Is that somebody who's selling ice creams by foot? Or is that a school bell? Sound awareness is the very first step to understanding and learning phonics because your children are discriminating between sounds with their ears, called auditory discrimination. Next is rhyme awareness. Now, I'm sure you have heard about how important rhyme awareness is, but this is actually one of your first indicators of future reading success. And rhyme awareness is children just being able to identify words that sound the same. For example, jug, rug, tug, mug, bug, thug, hug. They don't actually have to be spelt with the same sounds, but if they sound the same as a pre-reading skill, this is a very important thing to do with children. Then letter names and sounds. So we have touched on this on previous videos that we want children to know that every letter has a name and it has a sound. For example, K has a sound and that sound is K. and things that start with k are kiwi and kangaroo. Compound words. Now, this is a lot of fun, and this actually is something that you can do very, very early on in your child's learning journey. Compound words is when two separate words come together to make a new word. For example, lady and bug makes ladybug. And the word ladybug can be broken up into two words, lady and bug. Children need to be able to make them and break them, and they need to be able to hear the different parts of the word. This is going to help them later when they are reading a text and it's a long word they don't understand, and they can break it up into smaller chunks to make it more decodable. Then, another hugely important skill that children have to develop is being able to hear syllables. So, for example, banana is banana, tree is tree. It's not how many letters are in the word, it's the sounds that they can hear, breaking it up into sound families. Helicopter, helicopter. This is a very important skill for later on when children are faced with words. They need to break them up in order to be able to read them. And this has a strong influence on the accuracy and the fluency of your child's reading. Then, now we're at 11, and now we need to be able to recognize our own name. So, child being able to recognize their name is a pre-reading skill. And here is where your child starts to recognize that their name, as they hear it, actually has a graphic representation. There are letters that are put together to make the child's name. Then we move on to environmental print. This is the segue to reading formal words. So in environmental print, your child is reading things that they're familiar, logos and brands that they're familiar with. For example, if we take the word Disney, when written in the Disney font, your child may be able to read it. However, if you were to take that font context away and just type the word Disney, they wouldn't be able to read it. But it's the whole context and the familiarity of the branding that helps children to be able to identify the words. It gives them confidence, and it definitely opens the door into more formal reading where they're reading words that don't have as much context. Then we have words. So when we get to words, children have understood that sounds go together to make words. And then words go together to make sentences, and sentences have meaning. So please don't get too excited if your child is able to identify words. What you want to be celebrating, I mean, that is really great, but you also want to be celebrating all the 12 steps that came before that. Can they do all of those things? So join us for part 4, where I'm going to give you ideas to support these pre-reading skills. What can you do with your child as a parent to make sure that those 13 skills are well developed so that your child can be a very strong, confident, and happy reader?